The aircraft holds level. The seat presses steadily into his thighs, the vibration passing through fabric and bone without variation. His hands stay where they were left, fingers resting against the controls, not tightening, not easing. The engines maintain the same narrow sound, a single tone stretched forward, filling the cabin without pause. Pale sky slides past the glass, colorless, giving no signal to respond to. He shifts his weight slightly and feels the numbness remain. Air moves across his face, dry and thin, unchanged. No voice breaks the rhythm. No instruction arrives to interrupt it. The motion continues as it has been, straight and unremarked, carrying everything inside it forward a little longer. The thought does not strike. It settles. His mouth feels dry as he draws in a careful breath, the air thin and tasteless, doing little to ease the pressure building behind his eyes. The engines continue their even sound, a slight rise and fall that gently rocks the aircraft, just enough to be noticed. Through the glass, the ground is no longer clear, reduced to a distant blur with no detail to hold onto. The question has no picture attached to it. It is not connected to a face or a place. It exists on its own, suspended. He blinks once and keeps his gaze forward. His hands remain still. The fatigue sharpens his awareness instead of dulling it, leaving no room for distraction. Nothing else enters to replace the thought. With no task demanding it be pushed aside, it stays where it is, moving with him as the aircraft continues on. A seat shifts nearby, canvas rubbing softly against its frame. The sound carries in the dim interior, then settles back into the steady engine noise. Someone clears his throat, a brief, contained sound that goes nowhere. No one turns toward him. He keeps his shoulders fixed, feeling the tension hold there, neither rising nor easing. The edge of the seat presses through his clothing, rough against his side. Air circulates slowly, warm and used, with no change in smell or temperature. He does not adjust his hands or his posture. The space feels close without being crowded, each body present but contained. The quiet closes again, intact. Surrounded, he remains apart, letting the moment pass without marking it. Time moves without signal. He shifts one knee a fraction and feels the dull ache answer back, joints stiffening as if they had been waiting for permission. The horizon ahead does not change, a pale line held steady through the glass, offering no marker to measure against. The engines keep the same narrow sound, neither rising nor falling, pressing the moment forward without emphasis. His shoulders sink slightly under the growing weight of fatigue, a heaviness that does not announce itself but accumulates. He rolls his neck once and stops, the stiffness remaining. Nothing arrives to break the stretch. Nothing departs. The lull continues as it is, uncounted and uninterrupted, and he stays inside it, aware only that he is still here as it carries on. The engine sound holds steady, but his jaw tightens as he tries again to give the thought shape. He shifts his gaze upward, following the layered clouds as light breaks unevenly across them, bright in one place, dull in another. He attempts to measure, to set a boundary where none presents itself. The effort draws a deeper tension at his temples, pressure spreading as he stays with it longer than before. Numbers surface briefly, separate and unstable, then slip away before they can settle. He swallows and feels the strain collect behind his eyes, the mind working without traction. He presses his tongue against his teeth and waits, delaying the next attempt. Nothing organizes itself. The scale stretches beyond anything he can hold. He lets his head rest back against the seat and feels the vibration continue through it, unchanged. The calculation collapses again, leaving only the sense that it remains too large, and he stays there with that awareness as the flight carries on. Heat gathers at his collar, spreading slowly where the fabric presses against his neck. The air feels used, thin, carrying the steady engine sound without change. He swallows and feels how dry his throat has become, the motion catching halfway before finishing. The glass beside him holds his reflection for a moment, pale, doubled, unstable, then it shifts with the aircraft's movement. He looks at it, then deliberately turns his eyes forward. The effort tightens his jaw. The faces arrive without warning and without form. They surface briefly, close enough to register as human presence, then slip away before he can fix on them. He blinks hard and focuses on the sound of the engines, the single tone stretched forward. His breathing becomes shallow. He counts the breaths once, then stops. The reflection pulls again at the edge of his vision. He resists, holding his gaze steady. The faces return. No features. No sound. They linger a fraction longer this time, long enough for his eyes to begin adjusting before they thin out and disappear. His jaw tightens further, muscles setting as if to brace against impact that never comes. Sweat collects under the collar and cools as air moves past, leaving a faint chill. He shifts his shoulders and feels the tension stay. He looks again despite himself. The glass offers his own outline first, then something else layered over it. The faces surface, fade, then surface again, the interval between appearances stretching unevenly. His breathing stutters once before he forces it back into a controlled rhythm. He presses his tongue against the roof of his mouth, grounding himself in the pressure. The engines continue, unchanged, indifferent to the cycle. Each return requires more effort to ignore. His eyes flick away, then back, then forward again. The faces do not ask for attention, but their persistence demands it. The stillness inside the cabin thickens, layering over itself, making the air feel heavier than before. His shoulders lift slightly with each breath and drop again on the exhale. The delay before the faces fade grows longer, just long enough to register their presence fully before they recede. He does not reach for them. He does not name them. The count never forms. What appears cannot be numbered, only endured. The faces fade once more, leaving the reflection and the steady sound behind. He remains seated, jaw tight, breath shallow, letting the motion carry him forward as he waits for the next return. The sound inside the aircraft begins to thin. Voices reach him without shape, flattened into tones that carry no meaning. A faint ringing settles in his ears, steady and narrow, threading through the engine noise. He looks toward the instruments and finds them slightly out of focus, their edges softened as if seen through a layer of glass. His head feels heavy, pulled forward by its own weight. The effort to listen brings nothing back. Words arrive and dissolve before they can be held. Air moves past his face, unnoticed until it is gone. The motion of the aircraft continues unchanged, but his attention draws inward, narrowing to the remaining sound. He blinks and keeps still, letting the dull pressure remain as everything else recedes, leaving him with the sense of distance growing between him and what is being said around him. A dull warmth settles across his face as he stares ahead, eyes working harder than they need to. Other flights come back to him without invitation. Other stretches of quiet, similar in shape, overlooked at the time. The sky outside layers itself in pale bands, one drifting over another, and the sight pulls those earlier moments into alignment. He feels the strain behind his eyes as he holds them there, the mind sorting without instruction. Each memory overlaps the next, not distinct, but related. The engine vibration remains constant beneath it all, anchoring him in the present while the past rearranges itself. The weight of it presses gently but steadily, a mental load that does not lift. He recognizes the repetition now, the way these lulls connect, forming something he had not noticed before, and he stays with that realization as the aircraft continues on. His palms rest against his thighs, damp now, the skin tacky where it meets the fabric. He presses them there deliberately, as if the contact might anchor his attention. The engines continue their low, even sound, filling the space above him without pause. Through the glass, the ground has lost definition, reduced to an indistinct stretch that offers no edge to follow. He does not try to shape it. He keeps it without detail. He draws a careful breath and feels his stomach tighten in response, a quiet nausea settling just beneath his ribs. He tells himself not to look down. The instruction lasts only a moment. His eyes drift anyway, catching the blurred expanse below before he pulls them back forward. The motion costs effort. The engines remain constant, close and present, while beneath them he imagines a silence that does not rise, a depth that absorbs sound rather than reflecting it. He shifts his hands once, then stills them again, feeling the moisture remain against his skin. The imagined quiet presses upward, heavier each time it returns, not as an image but as weight. He tries to think of the aircraft instead, the vibration, the familiar pressure of the seat, but the sensation below resurfaces on its own. It arrives without detail, without permission. The contrast sharpens. Above him, routine motion continues, steady and mechanical. Below, the absence holds. He swallows and feels the tightness deepen in his stomach, the nausea remaining contained but persistent. He keeps his gaze fixed forward, jaw set, breathing shallow. The engines offer no change to follow, no variation to interrupt the thought. Each second stretches the stillness further, making the space beneath feel closer despite the distance. He presses his feet into the floor and feels the vibration answer back, confirming where he is. The imagined silence does not retreat. It settles alongside the sound, coexisting rather than competing. He does not supply faces or places. He leaves the ground as presence only, something held below them that does not announce itself. The aircraft moves on, steady and unremarked, while his attention remains caught between the constant noise above and the weight of what stays quiet underneath, carried forward without release. The air feels thin as he draws it in, offering little resistance, little comfort. He exhales slowly and notices how shallow the breath remains. Far below, the ground stretches out without detail, distant enough to seem unreal, yet it gives him nothing back. The engines keep their steady sound, and the aircraft holds its course, maintaining the separation that is supposed to matter. It does not. The thought rises with him, unaffected by height or distance, settling again behind his eyes. His chest tightens slightly as he sits with it, the strain contained but constant. He presses his shoulders back against the seat and feels the pressure hold. The link does not break. What he carries remains aligned with him, moving at the same pace, staying close as the flight continues forward without pause. His shoulders draw in without instruction, muscles tightening until the position holds on its own. The seat presses against his back, firm and unyielding, and the cramped posture makes even small adjustments feel costly. He tests a slight shift and stops, the effort answering back with a spreading ache along his neck and arms. The vibration from the aircraft settles into those tightened places, emphasizing them rather than smoothing them out. Air moves across his skin, cool in spots, unnoticed elsewhere. He keeps still and feels how much work that requires. The fatigue is no longer distant, it sits in the muscles themselves, heavy and present. He lowers his chin a fraction and lets it rest there, maintaining the tension. Holding feels easier than releasing. The posture remains fixed as the aircraft continues forward, carrying his body and the strain together. He draws air in slowly, feeling it fill his chest until the pressure becomes precise and contained. He holds it for a brief count, then releases it in a controlled stream, listening to how it passes his lips. The engines continue their even sound, offering a steady measure he tries to follow. The window frame beside him remains fixed, holding the same pale light, unchanged by his effort. He repeats the breath. In. Hold. Out. The motion brings structure for a moment, something narrow enough to occupy his attention. His shoulders lower slightly as the air leaves his lungs, then rise again on the next intake. The rhythm almost settles. Almost. The pressure returns behind his sternum, unchanged, waiting for the space between breaths. He adjusts the count, shortening it, then lengthening it again. The chest tightens as he draws in more air than is comfortable, then eases as he lets it go. The question remains present throughout, not interfering, not receding. It sits alongside the breathing, sharing the same internal space. He notices the strain in his neck as he keeps his posture upright, the fatigue controlled but accumulating. Another breath. He pauses too long this time and feels the need to release, break through the pattern. The air leaves him faster than intended. He steadies himself and begins again, more carefully now. The engines continue without variation, indifferent to his adjustments. The vibration under the seat supports the motion but does not guide it. He counts once more, silently. The rhythm holds for 2 cycles, then falters. His chest tightens again, the effort becoming work. He lets the count drop away and focuses only on the sensation of air moving in and out, the lungs expanding, settling. The breathing keeps him seated and present, but it does not displace the thought. Both remain together, carried forward as the aircraft continues on. The soreness settles into his shoulders and lower back, steady and exact. He shifts his weight an inch and feels the pain answer, firm enough to stop further movement. The cabin remains unmoving around him, the same dim shapes, the same narrow space holding its air. Engine vibration threads through the ache, keeping it present. He presses his feet into the floor and lets the pressure travel upward, confirming where he is. The discomfort prevents his thoughts from drifting far. It pins them to the seat, to the sound, to the moment that refuses to pass. Fatigue sits heavy in his body, worn but awake. He does not seek relief. He allows the pain to remain as it is, breathing once more and staying with it as the flight continues. He turns his head slightly and catches a crewman's face in profile, partly shadowed by the low light inside the cabin. The skin looks ordinary, marked by fatigue more than anything else. No expression stands out. The man remains focused ahead, breathing steadily, hands occupied without urgency. The shared stillness between them feels deliberate, held in place by the same motion carrying them forward. His chest tightens as he watches, a quiet pressure settling there. The awareness does not separate them. It links them. Whatever has already occurred includes both of them, without distinction. He looks away and faces forward again, feeling the weight of that connection settle alongside the engine sound, remaining present as the aircraft continues on. The air inside the cabin feels warmer now, used and slow to move, settling around the clustered bodies without clearing. He draws a shallow breath and notices how little space it fills. The others remain where they are, shoulders close, movements contained, each held within the same narrow enclosure. The engine sound wraps around all of them, steady and impartial. The weight he carries does not stay singular. It spreads across the space, touching each figure without easing its pressure. There is no sense of division in it, no portion that can be set aside. His fatigue deepens into something heavier, not in the muscles but beneath them, a strain that comes from recognition rather than effort. He lowers his eyes and keeps his breathing measured. The enclosure holds. No one is exempt. The aircraft continues forward, carrying the shared burden intact, without comment or relief. His lips feel dry as he presses them together, the skin tight with restraint. The microphone near him remains inactive, its surface dull, waiting without expectation. He sets his jaw and feels the tension settle there, firm and deliberate. Words form briefly and are dismissed just as quickly. Speaking would thin what remains intact, break its shape into something easier to ignore. He keeps still, breathing through his nose, controlling the impulse to release sound. The engine noise fills the space where speech could enter, steady and sufficient. The silence holds its accuracy because it is not disturbed. He lets the moment pass without marking it, maintaining the quiet as the aircraft continues forward, carrying everything unspoken along with it. He imagines the engines gone, the sound ending cleanly instead of fading, leaving air that does not move. The stillness in that thought has texture, thicker than silence in the aircraft, pressing lightly against his ears. He places himself in a room without voices, without footsteps, without the warmth that comes from bodies held close together. The space feels empty not because it is large, but because nothing arrives to fill it. He draws a breath there and feels his chest answer back with a hollow pressure, as if the air offers less resistance. The absence settles immediately, not dramatic, simply present. Fatigue reaches him early in that imagined quiet, before sleep, before rest, collecting in his shoulders the way it does after long hours of holding still. He shifts in his seat and feels the vibration of the aircraft push up through the floor, resisting the image, reminding him where he is. The contrast sharpens. Here, the engines continue their steady work, sound and motion joined. There, the room holds nothing but his breathing. He swallows and feels the weight gather in his chest again, anticipation forming without urgency. He does not picture furniture or walls. He keeps the room bare, defined only by the lack of sound and the space it leaves around him. He imagines standing there for a moment, then sitting, the body settling without instruction. The question remains with him in that space, unchanged by the quiet, no longer supported by engine noise or routine. It does not press harder. It simply stays. He feels it as a low tension beneath his ribs, familiar now, waiting. He adjusts his posture again in the aircraft, the movement small, practiced. The vibration answers back, firm and real. The imagined stillness does not dissolve. It holds alongside the present moment, layered rather than replaced. He breathes through his nose and feels the air dry his throat slightly, grounding him again. The future scene does not move forward. It does not conclude. It exists as a place he will reach when the sound stops and the crew disperses. He does not hurry toward it. He lets the projection end on its own, releasing it without effort. The engines continue beneath him, steady and close, and he remains seated, carrying the awareness of that later quiet with him as the flight goes on. His eyelids grow heavy, the strain behind them deepening as he blinks against the dim interior. The light has softened, shadows filling the spaces between bodies and equipment, giving the cabin a darker weight. He lets his head rest back for a moment and feels the pull of rest, the body asking for it without patience. The thought sinks with him. It does not loosen its hold. He knows it will be there if his eyes close, continuing without the engine sound to frame it. The fatigue runs deep now, settled into his neck and shoulders, pressing downward. He exhales and opens his eyes again, feeling the strain return sharply. The aircraft's vibration keeps him upright, present. Sleep offers no distance, no pause. The awareness follows him as closely as his own breathing. He adjusts his posture and stays awake, allowing the heaviness to remain while the cabin continues forward, dark and contained, carrying him without granting escape. His fingers flex against his thigh, the movement small but deliberate, as if testing whether they still respond. He imagines the texture of paper under them, dry and resistant, waiting. The shape of a desk forms briefly in his mind, simple and bare, existing somewhere beyond the noise and motion. Words could be placed there, held in lines long enough to slow the thought down. They would not finish it. They would not change it. The idea remains tentative, more delay than solution. Fatigue weighs on his hands as much as his shoulders, a tired resolve settling in without urgency. The engines continue their steady sound, keeping him where he is. He lets his fingers relax again, returning them to stillness, carrying the notion with him that later, when the motion stops, he might try to set it down in words. The engine hum has settled into a constant texture, no longer asking to be noticed. It presses evenly through the seat and the floor, a pressure his body now expects. Within it, the thought does not arrive. It is already present when he checks for it. He feels it as a steady weight behind his ribs, balanced rather than sharp, rising and falling slightly with each breath. He adjusts his position by a small measure and senses how his body compensates without instruction. The muscles along his back ease just enough to make room. Fatigue distributes itself the same way, no longer gathering in one place, spread so it can be carried. He rests his hands and leaves them there. The interior of the aircraft continues as it has, surfaces familiar, light unchanged, motion uninterrupted. The pressure remains constant. It does not demand attention, but it does not leave. He notices how quickly his breathing finds a rhythm that includes it, the chest expanding and settling without resistance. The thought fits there now, occupying the space the vibration once claimed on its own. He does not react to it. He adjusts around it. He shifts again, a slight roll of the shoulders, and feels how naturally the weight stays aligned with him. There is no effort to hold it in place. There is no effort to push it away. The fatigue has altered into something practiced, a condition rather than a warning. His jaw relaxes and sets again, the movement habitual. Nothing inside him moves to remove the thought. It has become part of the interior continuity, present the way sound is present, the way pressure is present. He checks the forward view and then returns his eyes to rest. The engines maintain their even work. His breathing remains steady. The balance holds. He recognizes the permanence without naming it. The awareness does not require definition to function. It settles into routine alongside posture, breath, and sound. He remains seated, carried forward, accommodating what stays with him as naturally as he accommodates the motion itself, continuing on without pause. The fabric of his uniform pulls slightly at the shoulder as he adjusts his posture, the weight of it familiar against his skin. In the glass nearby, a faint reflection follows the movement, blurred and incomplete, offering no clear outline to study. He does not search it for answers. He lets it remain what it is. The engines continue their steady work, supporting a quiet reckoning that does not announce itself. He feels grounded in his seat, the pressure solid and real, anchoring him in the moment. The fatigue has shifted again, settling into something he can endure without reaction. He does not reach for labels or defenses. He recognizes his place through sensation rather than thought, through the way the weight sits and stays. He remains still, breathing evenly, accepting the shape this awareness has taken, carrying it forward without resistance as the aircraft moves on. The strap across his chest feels tighter as he shifts, the webbing firm against his uniform, reminding him of how securely he is held in place. The pressure settles into his stomach, solid and unmoving. For a moment, an image of a runway forms ahead, long and pale, stretching forward without detail. The sense of motion pulls at him, a forward drag that does not promise anything different. What he carries now does not belong to this flight alone. It will come again, fastened just as closely, with no space to step aside from it. Fatigue braces itself in his body, ready rather than resisting. He exhales through his nose and stills. The thought does not ask whether he is willing. It will be there the next time, aligned with him as before, and he remains seated, accepting the pull as the aircraft continues on. Paper slides against paper as a checklist is lifted and turned, the edge brushing his fingers before it settles again. Voices sharpen, moving from low tones into brief, functional exchanges that cut cleanly through the engine noise. He answers when required, the words leaving him without effort or emphasis. His hands move as they have been trained to move, practiced and precise, responding before thought fully forms. The cabin feels more active now, bodies shifting, tasks reappearing in sequence. The rhythm changes outside him while something inside remains fixed. Fatigue is managed rather than resisted, held in place by routine. He adjusts his grip and looks forward, allowing the motion to carry him into the next phase, continuing without pause or comment. His hand closes around the control and stays there, the grip steady without tightening. The pressure travels up his arm and settles, familiar and contained. Ahead, the forward view holds its narrow line, sky and distance aligned without interruption. The aircraft continues on the same course, a single motion stretched forward. The question goes with him, unchanged by the return of tasks or voices. It is not answered. It is not set down. He feels it as a weighted calm, resting alongside the fatigue that no longer surprises him. The engines maintain their even sound, drawing a continuous line through the air. He adjusts his posture slightly and keeps his eyes forward. There is no point where the question is released. It remains carried, moving at the same pace, staying with him as the flight continues toward whatever comes next, held quietly for later. His breathing settles into a steady pattern, each inhale and release measured without thought. The air moves in and out cleanly, neither easing nor worsening the tension that stays balanced across his chest. Ahead, the distance remains open, a wide stretch that does not signal an ending. The engines continue their work, carrying the aircraft forward without pause, without any change that might suggest conclusion. He shifts his shoulders once and feels the weight remain, accepted rather than resisted. Fatigue sits where it has settled, no longer pressing for attention. There is nothing to resolve and nothing to finish. The motion continues as it must. He keeps his eyes forward and lets the moment extend, understanding that it will not close itself, and he moves on with it as the flight carries him onward. The engines persist, their vibration constant beneath the seat, passing through him with the same measured pressure as before. Inside the dim interior, light barely shifts, leaving the shapes of equipment and bodies unchanged. He draws an even breath and feels it move cleanly through his chest, unhurried. The silence returns inside him without effort, settling into the spaces that earlier thoughts had occupied. Fatigue rests where it has found its place, no longer sharp, simply present. He adjusts his hands and lets them stay, feeling the texture of the controls under his fingers. Nothing presses for response. The motion continues, steady and uninterrupted, carrying the sound forward while the quiet remains with him. He stays there, breathing evenly, aware of the vibration and the stillness together, held in balance as the flight goes on. The sustained hum continues beneath him, unchanged, a low pressure that keeps the aircraft moving forward. He feels its vibrations settle into his frame, grounding him in the seat as the forward distance holds steady through the glass. Outside, the lull has passed into motion again, tasks and headings resuming their place, but inside, the quiet does not lift. He shifts his feet against the floor and feels the weight remain, firm and balanced. Fatigue wears on him evenly now, no longer sharp, no longer demanding. The air moves past his face, familiar and thin, and he breathes it in without effort. What he carries does not loosen as the moment changes. It stays aligned with him, moving at the same pace, held without strain. He keeps his posture set and his eyes forward, letting the sound and the silence continue together, remaining with him as the aircraft goes on.